What's going on, YouTube? Back one more time. Another top 10 video. Today we are doing my top 10 favorite comic book movies in my collection. So let's go ahead and jump into that. First up, I have Iron Man, the first Iron Man. When I first heard this movie was coming out, I was a little surprised. I didn't know about the studio owning, the different studios owning all of Marvel's movie rights. So when I heard that they were doing their own studio, I was under the impression that X-Men and Spider-Man, Daredevil, all those movies were still going to be ran by Marvel. I didn't understand all the other aspects. But I was reading that they were doing the Avengers, and that got me pretty interested. So I did a lot of reading on this. I was excited they cast Robert Downey Jr. Actually, I laughed at it at first, but then I thought he'll do a good job as Robert Downey or as Tony Stark. So then when the movie came out, I was surprised at how good it was. They took their time with that movie. They did really good with it. And because of the success of this movie, this is actually what helped launch the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you got to give credit where credit is due. And I give that credit to this movie right here. Alright, next up, we have 300. This is the digibook version. You see all that beautiful embossment there. This movie, I didn't watch for the first couple of years. I'm not real big on movies that are just overhyped, like, oh, you got to see this movie, it's going to be the best. A lot of times I won't watch a movie, or I'll wait for a while. But this one, I popped it in, and I was really surprised by it. I like the visual style they went there, where it's kind of like they had the best way to describe it for me is an Instagram photo. But I like the story, and up until I watched this movie, I'd learned about the 300 Spartans in school. For some reason, I thought the 300 Spartans won the war. So I went into this movie thinking, how are they going to do it? That's a big-ass army. And then they died, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was shocked by the ending, because for some reason I had thought that they won. Great movie, though. I'm excited to check out the sequel. So I'm going to have to get to that. Check that out soon. Alright, next up is actually an animated one. And that is Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. When I first watched the first one, I just put it on for my kids. And I was sitting down and I was watching. I was like, this is pretty good. It's kind of graphic for kids. And then you watch it and you see that actually a bunch of the elements from the Dark Knight trilogy, more specifically The Dark Knight Rises, come from this movie right here, or this comic book series. So this altogether was really good for me. It had a bunch of his villains. It had Joker, you had Two-Face. I don't think the Riddler's in there. For some reason I want to say the Riddler, but I don't think the Riddler's in there. But you got Catwoman's in here. Just a great movie. I highly check this out I highly recommend this if you guys haven't seen it. And then next up is another animated movie, and that is the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. And this one, you got the Flash, who's devastated about his mom's death, after it happened so long ago. So he goes back in time to save her, and that alters a lot of the events of the future. Like, Batman, as you can see him here, is not Bruce Wayne. Batman is actually Thomas Wayne. I don't know if I should tell you or not. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. So if you don't want to know, then just fast forward through the video. In this movie, Batman is the one that died, or Bruce Wayne is the one that dies in the alleyway, and Batman's parents, Bruce, not Bruce, what is his name? I'm forgetting. Okay, Batman's dad, forget what his name is. Him and the wife, the mom, they survive. The mom becomes Joker, dad becomes Batman. Aquaman and Wonder Woman, they have a love affair, and Wonder Woman ends up killing Aquaman's wife. They're going to war, and it's messing up the world. Superman is undiscovered. He gets discovered by, he is discovered, but he isn't discovered by his parents. He's discovered by like the CIA or something. The government finds him, and they have him held up hostage somewhere. It's got a lot of cameos from other DC characters, and once they get the Justice League and the DC Cinematic Universe off the ground, I'd really like this to be Justice League Part 3. I think it'd be great. It would make a great live action film. So if you haven't seen this, check it out. Thomas Wayne, that's what his name is. Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne. Those were the survivors of the shootout in the alleyway, and Bruce Wayne died. Okay, next up here we have Hellboy, and what I like about Hellboy is it's a nice alternative to, because it's not Marvel, it's not DC, and it's aimed more at mature audiences. That's what I like about it. Ron Perlman makes a great Hellboy. Something about that guy's face, it's made for prosthetic makeup. The guy is hideous. But, you know, he's a damn good actor. I like him in just about everything that I've seen him in. And this movie right here totally was a surprise for me. When I seen previews for it, I was like, you know, it kind of looks good, but I'm sure it's going to be a letdown. And I was wrong. This movie right here kicks ass. If you haven't seen Hellboy, you need to check it out. There's also Hellboy 2. Hellboy 2 didn't make my list. I really loved it, but it didn't make the list of the top 10. And I'm eagerly awaiting Hellboy 3 as soon as Guillermo del Toro decides he's ready for it to end. Alright, and next up here we have Watchmen. So this is actually the third Frank Miller adaptation on this list. And this movie, I just watched it again, or for a second time, not that long ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I gotta say, I love this movie. I want to watch it again. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna pop this in as soon as I'm done with this video. It's about 2.5, almost 3 hours long. That's just the director's cut. There's the ultimate cut, and I believe there's a final cut. No, that's Blade Runner. That's the final cut. But this movie, very dark and gritty. It's it goes into an alternative 1985 timeline where we actually win the Vietnam War due to Dr. Manhattan back here, if you can see him there floating around, who has godlike powers, and Richard Nixon is still the president. You know, Tricky Dick got over on some people, and it's in his 3rd or 4th term as president, I believe. But the movie kind of follows Rorschach, and he's trying to figure out the death of the comedian who I believe, oh yeah, he's right here on the cover, who is murdered in the beginning of the movie. So that's kind of the basis of the movie. You know, you got all kinds of other little subplots going on. Real dark movie. If you have time to sit down for this, I'd highly recommend this. Like I said, I want to watch it again. Then next up, we got, what's this? This is number 4. X-Men 2, or X-Men United. X2, X-Men United. This one right here was easily the best X-Men movie out there. This was Bryan Singer's last X-Men movie before his return to direct Days of Future Past, which comes out this summer. This one had a bunch of characters. If you're an X-Men fan, more than likely one of your favorite X-Men characters was in here. But the bad guys and the X-Men, they team up for a greater cause in this movie, who comes in the form of William Stryker. Is it William Stryker? Or is that Curtis Stryker? I think Curtis Stryker is Mortal Kombat. William Stryker, one of the Strikers. definitely the best X-Men movie. And then it's followed by The Last Stand, which a lot of people hate. For some reason, I like that movie. I didn't really see any flaws with that movie. Well, there's flaws, but I didn't see anything too bad with it. Too wrong with it. Number 3 is The Avengers, what some people say is the greatest superhero movie of all time. Matter of fact, it says that right there. This is up there because this movie is what changed the game for all superhero movies, because now everybody wants to do their own superhero movie universe. And it was, like I said in the beginning of the video, it was thanks to the success of Iron Man, and then with the success of this movie, that only cemented their status as the greatest superhero movies ever. I wasn't real big on the recasting of Edward Norton and when they did Mark Ruffalo here, but I actually liked Mark Ruffalo's Hulk better than Edward Norton's, because it looked more like him. You know, it was a little more realistic. But everything about this movie just came together so well, and Loki played a really good villain. You know, a lot of people are comparing him to Heath Ledger's Joker, which, you know, I'd say that's fair. He does a really good job as Loki beyond this movie, you know, and all the movies that he's in. Alright, number 2, I am going to say, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one. The sequels, we're not talking about the sequels here. Now, why I say this movie is because this movie still stands up to this day. They didn't use CGI, they used animatronic suits. And other than maybe, you know, their lips, you know, when their mouths are moving and not matching up with the words, they still hold up. It's 24 years later. And it's very close to the original comic. You know, they tweaked a few things, like Shredder is actually Shredder is the main one, instead of there being, in the comic it was Shredder was the brother of Shredder is Oroku Saki, and there was another one, something else Saki. His name was very similar, but Splinter's master kills the brother. You know, the storyline with the girl was actually Shredder's brother in the comic book. So in this one, they kind of just eliminated the brother altogether and just made it to Shredder. But this is as close to the original comic as you can get for a movie, and it's still highly entertaining. Like I said, almost 25 years later, this movie holds up for me. It is great. It is dark and gritty before dark and gritty was cool, and it really disappoints me that all the things that I'm seeing on the new movie. But we're not going to get into that here. If you have not seen it, or if you haven't seen it for a while, you need to check this movie out. Alright. For the number 1 spot, just like my Disney top 10 videos, the number 1 spot goes to a trilogy. I couldn't just decide on just one. And that goes to the Dark Knight trilogy. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises. And a lot of people say The Dark Knight is the best one, but for me, the best one is whichever one I watched last. Batman Begins, I love the origin story. You know, you can watch it over and over again. It never gets old. And then The Dark Knight, which everyone says is the best movie. This is a movie that changed comic book movies forever. The first comic book movie to hit $1 billion. Great movie. Great performance by Heath Ledger that will never be topped. And then you have The Dark Knight Rises, which gets a lot of crap for the lack of Batman in the movie. But, you know, it works out for me. And the thing that I really like about these movies is the fact that it doesn't have to be about Batman. You could have taken Batman completely out of the equation and totally made up somebody entirely different. Because a lot of the characters are, you know, they're not really too close to the comic book material. They don't really look the same. So you could have just, Christopher Nolan could have just made up these people. And, you know, then there probably would have been people complaining about the similarities of Batman. But nonetheless, great trilogy, overall, 2 movies of those trilogy made $1 billion. It'd be hard to argue that they're not in the top 10 of all time. So, if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought about my list. Let me know what your top 10 comic book movies are in your collection. If you haven't subscribed already, I don't know what you're thinking. You should go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And look for more videos I got coming soon. I just did a Disney top 10 video, so if you haven't seen that one already, go ahead and check that out. And excuse me. Until then, stay true, stay blue.